So welcome back to our class in statics of rigid bodies, and we now already have tackled with scalar and vector quantities. But in this lesson, we are talking about vectors for two-dimensional systems. So basically, katong kaganiha akong gipang discuss, two dimensions gyapon to. Pero now, let's simplify further that kind of approach. Kaya as you can see, taas kayang atong solution kaganiha, and it took a lot of time for us to solve one problem. There is an easier way for us to solve those kind of problem by using this method. And for our objectives for this lesson, we are going to add coplanar forces using our scalar notation and add coplanar forces using Cartesian vector notation. Dire, ato na jud i-fix ang atong axis. Because on our previous lesson, sige change ang atong axis, di ba? Na atay U ug V. And sige og change ang atong angle ng axis. And with those kind of axis, maglisod ta og solve og problem, especially when we are dealing with trigonometric functions. But in this approach, if naalang tay axis nga ato kanunay gamiton, and which is very common, then this kind of solving will make it a lot easier. So, unsa man na siya nga axis, una tong giingon nga Cartesian coordinate system. And you already know that that Cartesian coordinate system is mao nang atong x, y, and z. But in this case here, we are still talking about the x and y axis because we are still talking about two-dimensional systems. So, focus lang sa x and y. And we know that your x and y axes are perpendicular with each other. So we already have a known angle between your two axes. Okay? So, question. Kanusa gani na matawag ang kanang forces as coplanar forces? When these two forces are acting on the same plane. So mao na tong gitawag nga coplanar forces. And in this case, siguro ato ingon nga ang kaning forces ni-act sila at your x and y plane. Okay? Now, how are you going to add coplanar forces using this easier method that we are going to learn? Say for example, you have force A, balik na punta ani. And you also have force B. Para masayon ni nato isolve, instead of creating a parallelogram or instead of creating a triangle out of these two forces, pwede nato siya buhatan og coordinate system. Sige, ato kitaon. Ako sa una buhaton, ako i-connect ang tail sa atong A ug B. And ako karon ibutang ang coordinate axis. So this is your x and this is your y. So, to add your force A and force B with the help of these coordinate axes you have here, all you have to do is to get the components of your A. Okay? First, to get your components of A. Unsa ra ganin ang component? Diba, niing ko kaganiha nga, mao na ang parallel sa atong x ug y. So, parallel ni siya sa atong x ug y. And kani nga length, mao ni siya ang atong x coordinate sa atong A. And kani nga length, mao ni ang y coordinate sa atong A. Okay? So, given that, let's say this angle is called alpha, to get your x coordinate sa atong A, ato ni itawag og ax and ay. Okay? So, to get your x coordinates sa atong A, so yung buhaton, yung mo lang buhaton is adjacent over hypotenuse. So, cosine of alpha is equal to ax over a. Or basically, this is just equal to a cosine alpha. And pwede rin mo siya i-diretso actually, di na ka mag-cosine alpha by just looking at the figure. So in this case, makayon ka nga, ang kaning ay parehas naman siya length ani. And this is opposite over hypotenuse. So this is sine. So kung makakuha kag sine, so ay is equal to a sine alpha. Ingana lang, pwede rin mo i-diretso, di na ka magsuwat-suwat ani kay malangan pa ka kung magsuwat-suwat ka ana. Kung adjacent over hypotenuse, a cosine alpha. Kung opposite over hypotenuse, a sine alpha. Diretso. Same as your B. Dirita, maghimo na pud ta og parallel sa atong B and parallel sa atong X ug Y sa atong B. So, ato ni gitawag og your BY and this is your BX. Namali ra na ako butang ang mga arrows pero anyways. So, to get your BX given that this angle is beta, to get your BX, unsa man na siya? So, diretso na ta, nataaning cosine. So, BX is equal to, unsa naman ni? So, X kay pareha na mag-length ani, di ba? Unsa man na siya? So, this is adjacent over hypotenuse. So, B cosine of beta. Kung BY, this is your angle, this is opposite to your angle, and this is your hypotenuse. So, B sine beta. So, nakuha ni mo ang components aning duha. So, kaning A na siya components of AX and AY. Kaning B na siya components of BX and BY. Now, how are you going to solve for the resultant of this one? Ang imo lang buhaton is i-add lang nimo ang tanan mga X ug i-add nimo ang tanan mga Y. Ana lang. So, your FRX is just basically equal to AX plus BX. And your FRY is just equal to your AY plus BY. Okay? So, ingana lang. Ingana lang pagkuha sa resultant. Kani, sayon ra kaayo ni kay pwede ra nimo matamatahon kung na-master na nimo. Dili pareha sa kadong kaganiha nga mangita pa ta sa mga angles unya magamit pa tag mga cosine law and sine law, pero kani lang atong balik-balikon nga mga equations to solve for the components. Okay? Ngana lang. Now, what if DI kung dili angle ang given? What if dili angle ang given? Kung angle ang given, kani ang imo magamit nga formula. But if dili angle ang given, kung ang given kay slope, so let's say this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. And kaning isa, this is 2, square root of 2. Ato lang ingon nga ingana ha. Slope is 3, 4, 5. And kaning isa, 2 square root of 2. Okay. So, to get the components of A, if ang given kay ang slope, ang imo lang buhaton, AX. To get your components imong AX, imo lang buhaton is to get the horizontal component of that slope, which is 3. Kay horizontal man ning atong AX, so ang imo pud pangitaon kay ang horizontal, which is 3. Divided by the hypotenuse of 5. So 3 over 5 and multiply by A. Ingana lang. Kung ang imong pangitaon kay AY, then AY is your vertical. So, ang imong kuhaon kay ang 4. 4 over hypotenuse 5 times A. So, ingana lang pagkuha sa components kung slope ang gamiton. Diri sa B, so bx, imong gamiton, x man, x nga horizontal, so 2 over square root of 2 times b. And same sa imong by, kay pares naman sila og 1, 2 over square root of 2 times b. So, sayon lang, jud kaayo siya kung components ang atong gamiton. And still, you are going to use this one when you add these components. Take note nga, ang x dapat nag-uban. To get your resultant force among x, you should add the x's. And to get your resultant force sa y, you should add the y's. X's and y's. Makaingon siya tag y, no? Kung natay x. Okay, understood. I hope you did. So, same goes if you are going to going to add 2 or more forces. So, kung tulo atong forces, napatadiri, let's say, nya siya angle. So, makakuha ka sa, C ni siya, makakuha na punta sa CX ug CY gamit aning atong angle-angle. And take note, kung going to the left na gani ang atong force, ang iyang x component is negative. If going right ang atong force, ang iyang value is positive. Ang iyang x component is positive. If going up ang atong force, ang atong y component is positive. If going down ang atong force, ang iyang y component is negative. I'm so sorry. Okay? Ngayon ko nga ang y component is negative kung paubos siya. So dapat di ay ang atong y diri is dapat negative. Okay? Automatic na diri pod negative na pud diri pod negative na pud ni siya. Okay? Kay again negative siya by just looking at the direction of your force. This is going down. And again, if it's going down, this is your zero, so it should be negative. If it's going up, it should be positive. If it's going right, it should be positive. If it's going left sa atong y-axis, it should be negative. Ana lang. And add. Simply add. Now, always take note that when you're talking about scalar notation, you should always put the direction. So, ang atong frx na ato pag-add ani, it should indicate kung asa dapit nga direction ng positive. In this case, ningon man ta nga ang positive should be going to the right, then moingon ta nga positive atong pa-right. Sa atong y, if positive ang atong pa-up, then magbutang ta nga dapat positive ang atong pa-up. Ya, kung ang component kay going down, then it should be going down. So therefore, kaning atong by should be going down, negative. Kay going down man ang iyang component. Okay? So take note, maon na usahay ang kasayupan nato when we are talking about these vectors chuchu. Okay? Makalimot ta usahay sa sign. Nga dapat kung right ta positive, kung up ta positive, kung left ta negative, kung down ta negative. Always take note of that because ako makalimot pod ko usahay. Basin kamo pod makalimot pod mo inig solve ninyo. Okay? So now, let us talk about Cartesian vector notation. As you can remember on your physics siguro, nga kung mag-ingon ta og Cartesian vector, it always nasa na siya mga I, J, ug K. Diba? Nakinamdom mo? So, ato na i-apply dire sa atong Cartesian vector. So, let's say, I want to express my force A into Cartesian vector. So, ang akong buhaton, Cartesian vector A is just equal to A x I plus A y j. Mo ni siya ang Cartesian vector. So, kaning ax, number ni siya, pero in this case, variable lang kay, man ta nag-assign og number. So, variable ni siya. So, kung natay variable, kung natay number kung tayo ng ax, ato isudli nga, 20 Newton I, ing ana, mo ni pasabot. Unya, 30 Newton J. Okay, kung nani siya number. Pero man tayo number, so, ing ani lang sa. So, kung sa atong B, Ngayon vector notation, Cartesian vector notation atong B, then bxi plus byj. And now, for you to be able to determine the resultant force of your A and B, ang imong baton, A plus B, which is equal to AXI plus AYJ plus, take note again, negative ni siya, kaya paubos ni siya, plus BXI minus BYJ. So, and then, ato uban ang x's and y's. So, itabo na po na ni. AX plus BX I plus AY minus BYJ. So, ingana siya kalibog kung magamit og Cartesian vector notation. And then, our answer, siguro makaingon ta nga, kung natay values, ang ato makitaan is 100 newtons I plus 50 newtons J. Ingani ato makitaan nga answer kung natay values. Pero wa pa tay values, so let's deal with this. Pero ingani ang atong formula kung mag-deal ta. And ingani itsura kung Cartesian vector notation atong gamiton sa pag-solve. Kung scalar lang, then we can get your FR, ang magnitude sa imong FR ug ang direction sa imong FR. So now, let's have an example. So we have a boom here that is subjected to two forces of F1 and F2. And our goal here is to express each force as Cartesian vector. So yun lang ang atong problem. Dali ra ni siya. So again, ato una buhaton, maghimo ta sa atong coordinate system. Okay? This is your x and this is your y. And we have two forces. You have your F2, which is, ang given niya is ang iyang slope to 16 newtons. And ang iyang given, again, is its slope 5, 12, and 13. And the other one, alas 5 na, F1 equals to 200 newtons. And this is direct. Ang given niya is angle. Ang isa given kay slope, ang isa given angle. 30 degrees. So our goal is to express each in Cartesian vector. CV. Curriculum vitae. Okay. So, now, ato unahon ng F1. Unsa man nato pag-express it into Cartesian vector ato sa pangitaon ng iyang x and y components. So, pangitaon nato f1x and f1y. And makuha natong component sa aning f1 by making a parallel line to your y-axis. So let's call this one f1x and your vertical line as f1y. And also, this is parallel to your x-axis and this is parallel to your y-axis. Okay? So, your f1x, sa ato na hibaon kaganiha, you have this angle of 30 degrees. And this is your f1x gihapon. Okay? And, as you can see, padung ang atong direction sa left. So, negative ni siya. Negative, unsa naman to? Hypotenuse of 200. Unya, kibaw man ta nga this is opposite over hypotenuse. So, this is sine of 30 degrees. So, diretso na. Diretso na lang kuha kay kasabot na mo ana. And for your f1y, you have positive ta kay going up 200 and this is your f1y as well, so adjacent over hypotenuse, cosine of 30 degrees. Okay? So therefore, ang imong Cartesian vector notation aning atong F1 is just pila man lang 200 sine 30. This is 100 negative 100 newtons I, and then plus 200 cosine 30. This is 173.21 newtons J. So this is your Cartesian Cartesian vector of your F1. At tutas sa atong F2. Same gyapon atong ibuhat ang himutag parallel ang length, and then ang length. So, in this case, balik na punta sa F2x. So, okay, this is your F2x and this is your F2y. So, your F2x is given ani kay slope. So, ato pangitaon ang horizontal. So, 12 over 13 times ang imong force of 260 newtons. So, this is 240 newtons. And your F2y is equal to, so vertical, and take note that this is going down. So this should be negative. So 5 over 13 times 260 newtons, which is equal to 100 newtons. Negative. So therefore, your Cartesian vector notation of your F2 is basically 240 newtons I minus 100 newtons J. So, mao nang atong answer sa number 1. Very easy. Okay? Nagamit naman ta sa atong easy nga shortcut. Number 2. We have this link that is subjected to two forces, which is your F1 and F2. And we have to determine the magnitude and direction of our resultant force. So, how can we solve that problem? So, ato sa i-draw na pod ang atong coordinates, which is ang atong x and y coordinates. And you have this force of 600 newtons, which is directed 30 degrees. And this is F1. And you also have a 400 newtons, which is directed 45 degrees. This is F2. Lobat na ta, so nagdali ko. I'm so sorry. Now, pares gyapon na atong buhaton. Para makuha na atong resultant force, dapat natay components sa atong resultant force, Rx and Ry. Okay? So, to get your Rx, unsa to imong buhaton? Imong F1x plus F2x. And sa imong Ry, F1y plus F2y. Okay? So, mao ni imong goal. Okay? Kung i-erase, okay, mag-solve ta. So, una ta diri sa F1. Again, maghimo og gyapon ko og ako gyapon maghimo parallel lines, and you will know that this is your F1x and this is your F1y. Okay? So, ato i-solve ang F1x ug F1y. F1x is equal to, saan man ni? Opposite over hypotenuse. So, that is adjacent over hypotenuse. So, that is cosine. So, 600 cosine of 30 degrees. Diretso na ko. Kung wala ka kaapas, balik sa akong previous na video. Okay. Ang atong F1y is equal to, so, since opposite over hypotenuse, that is 600 sine of 30 degrees. So, ato i-solve ang iyang answer. Wala man siya nag-ingon no nga dapat Cartesian vector ang kuan. ang atong answer 519.615. And then 600 sine 30, 300 newtons and newtons. Okay, so these are your components of F1. Now, ito sa F2. F2x. So, again, still same application. We have to make a rectangle, and this is your F2x and F2y. This is your angle 45. So, 45 yapon ni siya diri. So, apply gyapon ang same concept. F2x adjacent over hypotenuse. So, 400 cosine of 45 degrees. And ang atong F2y equals to 400 sine of 45 degrees. So, probably they have the same answer. 282.842. So, ang kaning sine, pares na sila answer, pero ako lang be-sure. Sakto. 282.842 newtons. Now, to get the resultant, you have to add the x's and the y's. Okay? So, Frx is equal to F1x plus F2x. But, you should take note nga, ang signs, dapat sakto atong sign. So, ang atong F1x is going to the right, so sakto, positive. Atong F1y is going upward, so positive. Sakto. Atong F2x going to the left, there is atong kuan, so dapat negative ni siya. And then ang atong F2y going upward, so positive siya. So, ito na mga sign. So, ato'y add Frx is equal to F1x plus F2x. So, 519.615 minus 282.842 equals to, the answer is 236.773 newtons. And for your Fry, you have here 300 plus 282.842. That is 582. Ano ako po manikikalkyo. So these are the components of your resultant force. And kung ato na ipakita diri sa atong kuan, makita na to nga positive and positive. So naa siya sa atong positive nga quadrant. Okay? So makita nimo nga atong Frx is 236. So 236.773, and your Fry is 582.842. And as you can remember, para makuha natong resultant force, i-add natong duha ka components, and by using parallelogram rule, then parallelogram method, you will get this Fr. So to get your Fr, simply you have to do Pythagorean theorem, which is square root of 236.77 squared plus 582.842 squared. And there you will get your answer of, you have your answer 629.099 newtons. This is the magnitude of your resultant force. And again, ako na nag-discuss earlier to get. Okay guys, so na-shutdown man ang atong camera na kay wala joy battery ang duha. So ato lang ni padayonon og solve nga wala na koy camera. Okay? So you have here the answer of 629.099 newtons of your Fr. And we solved it by using Pythagorean theorem because we know the magnitudes of your x and y already. Ingano lang pag-solve sa atong Fr. But still we have another question. We have to determine the direction of the resultant force. So ang question ana ato ni gipangita nga angle. And to get that angle, what are we going to do? So we already know that this length is 236.773 and this height is 582.842. then we should get this angle by using the formula or the trigonometric function of tan theta. Okay? Because tan theta is equal to opposite over adjacent. And your opposite is 582.842 over your adjacent is 236.773. Okay? And simplify, theta is equal to the inverse tan of this one, 582.842 divided by 236.773. And dire na lang ako ibutang kay wala na ko space. So the answer of your theta is equal to 67.89 degrees. So these are your final answers for this problem. Understood? Nakuha ninyo ang pag-solve sa problem, and I don't care if nakatigo mo sa process sa pag-solve. All I care is on the concept on how did you solve the problem. So I hope that you understood how to get your theta. Bisag asa naka-orient ang theta, kay bawo mo unsaan pag-solve by using the concept of those SOHCAHTOA. I hope you already knew how to solve for your FRX, FRY. You have able to show these forces into their Cartesian vector notation, and to add forces by using your scalar notation and your vector notation using these components of your x and y. I hope nakasabot lang mo. And if you still have things that you don't understand yet, then it's good if you will practice. So that is why I have here your assessments so that you can answer these problems yourself. And if you don't know how to answer these problems yourself, then you can resort to ask questions to your classmates on how they solved the problem. And by that, you will be able to solve it yourself na. Okay? I hope you did understand, because these things are very critical when we proceed to our next topics. Kay makasabot ra pud ko ninyo nga naiuban nga nakasabot kaayo ani, naiuban nga wala nakasabot kaayo ani, because naiuban nagkuhag stem, naiuban nga nagkuhag fumes or gas or whatever, and probably ang katong uban nga mga strand, they are still not familiar with this one. So it's good for you to help each other and help understand these concepts together, because we should all be helping with each other, especially in this time of pandemic. Okay? So, walang, magkuan lang to, char-char lang ang mga message ba? Pero I hope nakaapas mo sa atong lecture. Okay? Understood? And now, as a summary of our lesson for this day, we already knew how to add coplanar forces using our scalar and vector notation by using the x and y components or the axes. And you already knew how to express a force into its Cartesian vector notation. I hope that you understand the lesson for this week, and see you on the next week. So, bye. Stop.